in the results, it says that ivermectin is associated with reduced inflammatory markers, so it causes reduces inflammation, faster viral clearance, so it gets rid of the virus quickly, and it's dose dependent, which is good. It means the more you give, the more likely it's going to work. It says it shows significantly shorter duration of hospitalization. So the people in the ivermectin arm were in hospital for a shorter time than those in the control arm. It says in the studies of severe infection, there was a 75% reduction in mortality. So 75% fewer deaths in the ivermectin arm. And then it says, and there was favorable clinical recovery and reduced hospitalization. So it led to fewer people actually being hospitalized. So that all sounded great, and then it says many studies that were included were not yet published or peer-reviewed, and meta-analyses are prone to confounding issues. So the fact that they're not yet published or peer-reviewed, not published, the preprint servers were established during the Ebola health crisis because in a health emergency, researchers need to get their evidence out really quickly.
Yeah.
And so, to say, well, this is a problem is bizarre. And then it says all peer-reviewed. Now, the process of systematic reviewing is, in essence, reviewing papers, and you're in the unique position to be able to ask the authors for clarification and more information or data or whatever. So it's really strange to me that they've undermined their own findings. And then it says a wide variation in standards of care across trials. And ivermectin dose and duration of treatment was heterogeneous, which means different. So the fact that there were wide variation in standards of care is also a strength in this context, because many of these studies actually compared ivermectin to an active treatment. So, so in actual fact, it would have reduced, if ivermectin was still showing benefit, it would have actually, it underestimates the effect rather than overestimates it. And then most shockingly to me was that he says ivermectin should be validated in larger, appropriately controlled randomized trials before the results are sufficient for review by regulatory authorities. So he's saying the authorities can't even look at this evidence until larger randomized controlled trials are done. So it was very disappointing, because we know how long randomized controlled trials take to do and how expensive they are. Although this hasn't happened in the context of other drugs that have been rushed through the studies during COVID and approved by emergency authorization.
Remdesivir, other things like that, or even the vaccine itself. So essentially, you had the body of what you had, the work you'd sent over, it's all there, showing 75% reductions. These amazing, as Pierre Corey put them, like almost miracle cure results in studies all around the world. Yet at the end, he's put this paragraph that essentially says, but it wasn't fully peer-reviewed. We can't totally trust it because the studies were, different in nature and used different approaches, which you says makes it a strength because it survived every way that it was used in the different variations. And then lastly, the nail in the coffin really is basically saying, and this is from the WHO perspective that he's representing this, he's saying, we cannot recommend this to anyone in the world until we do a full randomized control study. We need, more investigation. It's positive, but let's put a hold on this. Is that essentially what that last paragraph does? It takes it out of use, out of recommendation by the WHO at a time where thousands and thousands of people are dying every day.
Yeah.
So what was the first thought you had when you read that sort of conclusion? What was running through your mind?
I said to Andrew, we have to meet. Let's meet. I said, you've got to retract this paper. I can help you revise it. And he said he would meet with me the next day.
Were you concerned at all that maybe there was an outside influence that had come in?
I was concerned that there were some influences. Yeah, I was. When I saw that, I thought, what is going on here? Because he's been saying he's going to work with us to get ivermectin approved, and then there's this. So that was the thing. Is what is actually going on?
So now we have this representative, a consultant for the WHO that you've been collaborating with. Pierre, Corey, Dr. Merrick have all been working with him. Very excited about, we are going to sort of bring this information to the world and perhaps really start saving lives. The paper comes out, it has this conclusion. You reach out. So set up for me what you wanted to get across to Andrew Hill in your meeting, this Zoom call that was about to happen.
Yeah, I wanted to find out who was influencing him to make those conclusions, and I was hopeful that I'd be able to persuade him to retract that paper and go ahead with us and do the Cochrane review, which then would be definitive.
Can I speculate that you felt like the Andrew Hill you had been working with was so positive that by reading this, you just assumed there must be somebody else that stepped in because it was out of character? Was it out of character from what you'd known about it?
It was out of character because even after our meeting, even after his paper had been published, that Financial Times clip that you posted just now was from the 19th of January. So he published the paper saying that he needed, that it couldn't be assessed, it couldn't be evaluated or recommended by or reviewed by the regulatory authorities. And then he was saying in the newspaper the next day, well, get ready, get supplies and all of that. And in actual fact, there was also another, I think on the 19th or 20th, he presented in a panel in South Africa where he was asked about ivermectin and what would he do if his brother got sick or a family member got sick with COVID, would he use ivermectin? And he said, yes, he would want his brother to get ivermectin. So even after publishing that it can't be used by the regulatory authorities or recommended, he was saying, well, I'd like my brother to get it. So there was this kind of, it was like, these inconsistencies that were really hard to understand.
Okay, so you reach out to this person who is at the very least conflicted. We have some of the excerpts from your Zoom call, which I think are very telling. At least we try to get a sense of.
I think I'm in a very sensitive position here. What I'm trying to do.
People are in sensitive positions. They're in hospital and ICUs dying, and they need this medicine.
Well,
this is what I don't get. Because you're not a clinician, you're not at the coalface, you're not seeing people dying every day. And this medicine prevents deaths by 80%. So 80% of those people who are dying today don't need to die because there's ivermectin.
There are a lot, as I said, there are a lot of different opinions about this. As I said, some people...
We are looking at the data. It doesn't matter what other people say. We are the ones who are tasked with and we have the experience to look at the data and reassure everybody that this cheap and effective treatment will save lives. It's clear. You don't have to say, well, so-and-so says this and so-and-so says that. It's absolutely crystal clear. We can save lives today if we can get the government to buy ivermectin.
So here he's saying things like, well, there's not a consensus. There's other people that have different points of view. And you're like, they haven't researched this at the same level that we have. What was the energy that you were sensing from him?
Well, he wasn't making eye contact. He was being very, he was trying to avoid making eye contact. He was kind of, it just felt like he was making excuses and just not coming up front and just saying what was actually going on.
And there were so many people's lives hanging in the balance, and it seems like in this call, you really tried to wake him up. Like, what are we talking about? Here's an excerpt where you try to really get him to admit you do realize that people are dying in huge numbers. We could make a difference. It's I guess, an attempt to reach out and poke him through the Zoom call. Let's take a look at this.